Welcome to our first lesson. In our first lesson, we'll look at the basics of photography. Perhaps it's important that we define what photography is. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, photography is the art or process of producing images by the action of radiant energy, and especially light on a sensitive surface, such as film or an optical sensor. So there are three guiding elements of a good photography or image. That is number 1, light, number 2, subject, number 3, composition. So we'll look further into those three. What do they entail? So light being the most important thing in photography, light is the backbone or the cornerstone of photography. Without an understanding of light, it will be hard to capture good images. There are principles to help you understand lighting. These are exposure and contrast. These can also be achieved by a good control of your shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. We won't dwell much on this. I will show you how to work around these controls on your smartphone. So it's important to note that exposure is the amount of light that reaches your camera sensor, and contrast is the ratio of the brightest and darkest parts of your images. So these help create tones and textures to your images. So let us look at subject. So what you place in front of the camera is what I call the subject. It could be a person, a cup of coffee, or a mountain, or a street. The subject is what captures your eye. So a viewer is drawn to that subject. The subject is what drives the story or the narrative. It is important to light your subject correctly, as that has an effect on the quality of your image. You don't want an image that is too dark or too exposed. So when we talk of composition, we talk of where and how you place your subject. So you compose an image before you even take a picture. What do you visualize to be the end product of this image that you're taking? So that is what composition is all about. So now that we've looked at light and the subject matter, let's look at how you set up your subject. So the advantage of a smartphone is the size. You can always fit it in your pocket. It's small, unlike the clunkiness of a DSLR camera. Where you place your subject communicates to the viewer what their eye should focus on. You would want to arrange your subject in a way that it stands out. So our exercises will look at how you can use principles such as the rule of thirds. So here is an example of what rule of thirds look like, where you position your subject for the viewer to read through what's on the frame. By reading through, I mean their eyes move from a certain point to another point. So a rule of thirds is a principle that is mostly used in photography to guide the viewer or to tell a story, to help communicate a story. So this is an example of rule of thirds. You can see that this image has grids. You can also set these on your smartphone. There's an option to select or use grids on your smartphone. Now that we've looked at these three guiding principles, let us go and demonstrate how to compose and set exposure. So what we're going to do today is to do an exercise on composition and exposure. Remember, we've defined what light is, that is exposure, and what composition is. So we're going to do an exercise. This is a fig tree. So there's some nice light coming through between the leaves, but I want to get a nice shot of these leaves while also testing out the different exposure levels and also a good composition. What I'll do is to move closer. In this particular leaf, as you can see that the image is a bit underexposed. What I'll do with this meter that is on your camera, I can bring it up a bit, slightly up. There's some nice light coming through them, but the image is a bit darker. So some cameras allow you to lock the focus point and take a picture. So you have to constantly move the light bar or meter to get your shot. So for me, this is the best composition because I can see the light coming through between the leaves, and I keep trying different exposure levels. See, if we take it up, it blows out all the highlights. The image is washed out. You can't see the highlights of the leaf. But if we bring it down again, the image becomes too dark. So we have to balance it out, maybe move it to 0. This is a better. So what is happening right now is that the phone has locked the focus point. This is the focus point. So by hard pressing, you can lock the focus point. That is where the focus of the image is. Then you can have options to move the light. Where do you want the exposure to be? I can move around. You see, now it's lit on my left, and I can light up the right and take your image. Thank you for joining me. In our next lesson, we will look at portraits, how to shoot portraits of people. Join me next time.